Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I welcome all of you with the Islamic greetings. May peace, blessings, and mercies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be on all of you. Dear listeners, today in our session we are going to have one of our important topics to be covered. It is how to write a high-impact scientific research and review article. And I'm Professor Dr. Khalid Rahman Hakim, working as the full professor at King Abdulaziz University. It's a main campus in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. So in our today's lecture, we are going to deal how to get published. Before you begin the process of publication, what you have to do, how do you select your audience, what is the basic structure of a research article, what is the basic structure of a review article, what is the review process, and how is the editorial process being taken up. And we should discuss some of the important ethical issues which should be followed during the process of publication. So let us begin our talk by saying that a research to writing is a long journey in the process of a higher learning student. A student who is subject to being under research, he needed to undergo lots and lots of processes. Finally, the ultimate goal is to write whatever the results he got from his research. And this is the ultimate success, and this is the ultimate aim of a researcher whenever he is going to complete his research, maybe in master, maybe in PhD, maybe in postdoctorate, or in any part of his career. So this long journey, there are a number of steps which one need to follow, and a person needs lots and lots of guidance from at least those who are already in this journey. So nobody is perfect. Nobody claims to be perfect in the process of research to writing, but we are actually sharing our ideas with our younger colleagues and those who feel it very difficult task. Although it is a difficult task, but it is not impossible. So with proper guidance, with proper understanding, you can also easily, publish your research writing. How do we publish it? Let us discuss all those processes one by one. This is one of our important, slides. Actually, this is what we called as the mean lab mission. In almost every research laboratory, first of all, your ideas matter. Whether the ideas are from yourself or it is the idea of your PI or the idea of your professor. So these ideas, in order to check these ideas, usually we require the funding. Sometimes we will discuss how to get the funding, and that will be a very wonderful session also. But at this moment, I'm telling you that the ideas need to be checked with proper funding. And most of the good universities, they are having their own funding. Universities are supported by the government as well as non-government organizations in order to check their ideas and novel things about their particular research. So all these ideas as well as funding, we require a talented scientist, a talented supervisor, as well as talented students. So properly utilizing the funding, as well as checking the ideas with scientific temperament. What is the hypothesis? How to check these hypotheses? What is the positive? What is the negative? The talented scientist is actually generating the data. The data could be a good data or a bad data. Bad data is something which is not redundant, which is something, it cannot be reproducible, or it is just like, you got the data from error. So a good as well as talented scientist knows which data is good and which data is bad. Even after the talented scientist is getting a good, very nice data, Still, it is a long process from which this good data is getting processed to form the wonderful manuscript, and that manuscript is then usually accepted to a wonderful journal, and that acceptance is basically an ultimate success of a student as well as the research scientist. So let us discuss this process, how this good data is actually processed, and what are the important tips which we can use and utilize to get our papers, manuscript published in a wonderful journal. Why to publish? Usually we ask this question, and whenever this question is asked, I am always remembering an African proverb. African proverb says that until the lion learns to write, every story will always glorify the hunter. What does it mean? It means that until a student knows how to write, until a wonderful researcher knows how to write and get it published, nobody is knowing his work. Nobody is praising his work. His own research's worth is nothing. So all the wonderful research, all the wonderful publications, they have actually brought the science forward, and we are nowadays seeing the advancement in science and technology from leaps to from very, very wonderful experiments are done, and they are actually converted into products. Just an example is we have the coronavirus vaccine, which has been created within a span of just 1 year. So this all is because of the labor and laborious work done by the researchers and their publications published in the huge impact factor journals. Now, to publish, there are a number of personal reasons. For example, as a PhD student or a master's student, you need to graduate. And for the graduation, you require the publication. This is a rule from the UGC, or this is a rule from the particular university. So this is some of the reasons. Some, like we people, the professor level people or the scientist level people, we require the funding from the government, non-governmental organizations, as well as university funding. So for that, we need to publish the paper. And also the paper publishing as well as publication of the scientific research, it has been directly related to get the promotions. And there are some other reasons to be in front of the science as well as be in the scientific community. There are a number of reasons. But remember one important point: whenever we are submitting all the papers to any journal, the editors, the reviewers, as well as the research community, they do not consider these reasons when they assess your work. So they don't consider you have to go for the PhD, so we should help him. They do not, what I can say, understand that you want the funding. So in that reasons, you actually need to publish. They also don't want that, you get the promotion, so you need the publication. So whenever you send the publication to any impact factor journal, all these issues are not taken into consideration from the editorial point of view, from the reviewer's point of view. So although you have your personal reasons to publish, but those who are at the helm of affairs in as a reviewer capacity or a editor capacity, they don't consider all these reasons. So they require your paper to be up to the mark. It should have the high standard. It should have followed the high, quality of research, as well as high standards of research, scientific temperament, and it should have written very well. So mostly my students, they ask this question, younger colleagues ask this question. We usually send the paper for publication, but they don't understand that we have to, graduate, so they should do it fast. See, my colleagues, they don't understand all these issues. Neither they are bothering about all these things. If your paper is, just showing some standardized data and it is written very well, they will accept it. Whether you want the paper to get published for your PhD degree, funding, promotions, or other reasons also. And we should keep this thing in mind that the published papers are actually the permanent record of your research. They are actually the passport to your community. So if suppose you are doing wonderful research, but you are not publishing, nobody knows you. So in the research community, it is basically the research papers, it is basically the publications of yours or from your lab, they are actually mattering. So whenever you want to show, you want to impress someone, or you want to get a job, you want to get the postdoctorate position, a research position, you position in the university and the college, they actually look about the research papers. They don't consider what ideas you have, how much thinking you have. Actually, what actually matters in the research community is the research paper. So they are acting like the visa or the passport for your upgrowth as well as your upbringing. Now let us discuss a little bit what is the trend in publishing. So as we see, before 1997, most of the journals, scientific journals, they were publishing in the print mode. So they were, putting in the print, and the journal was going to the, sometimes you have to go for the subscription, sometimes it goes to your university library. But because that time internet was not so much fast, so it is the advancement of 2000 and beyond, you see most of the journals, they start e-publication, electronic access of publication. And if we see in 2021, almost 99% of the journals, they are published the electronic mode only, electronic access only. It may be 1% journals which are publishing both electronic as well as the hard copies. But if you see what actually happened when this trend has been following, that every journal need to be in the e-access, this has actually increased the usage of the articles. If you see, the previously publication was little laborious. It was taking time to your article sent to the journal via postal address. Then from if you get some, suppose for example, you will get some comments, those comments were sent to you via postal address. Then sometimes you get the same, sometimes you don't get the same. After you do the revision, it will get back again to the journal via postal address. So this was a laborious as well as time-taking process. But if you see the process nowadays, it's very easy, very understandable, that anyone can access the internet, anyone can upload in a paper, and it becomes very, very fast, lightning fast speed, that you submit the paper to the journal, and the journal is directly accepting and sending the email to you that they have received your publication. So this electronic submission has actually increased the manuscript inflow. So what I can say is that this electronic access has actually created some good points, some bad points. Good points in the sense that publication process become very fast. Bad points, naturally, that it becomes very, very fast, super fast. Why it is bad? Because suppose you want to publish your work and somebody else is also doing the similar type of work. If they publish before you, so your publication and your research becomes older, and not a good journal will accept it. So this is some good points, some bad points about this electronic. But if you see and if you compare, you will see that electronic access has increased the manuscript inflow. And nowadays the new models are getting generated. You see that there are some publishing companies which are publishing what we can say the author pay model. You have to pay the amount, and the publication becomes freely available, open access to the world. The world can easily check your publication. While as there are some journals which are following the old system. What is the old system? When you publish the paper, you don't require to pay the amount, but your paper is kept under security. It's only your abstract which is making available. If suppose somebody wants to read your full paper, they need to pay. Maybe the university need to pay, maybe the country need to pay. So these are different models which nowadays are following in the publication trends. Okay. Now another point which is now everybody knows, that every good paper and every good journal, it depends upon how much the peer reviewing process of the journal is. See, before 1665, if you see the journals, you published a paper, you sent your paper, and it was the editorial board who decide themselves whether this paper has some, scientific merit or not, and they publish it on their own. But after this 1665, the publication has started, the research publication, the good journals, they have started what they called as peer reviewing system. What does it mean? It means whenever you send and submit your paper, this paper prior to publication, it goes to the topmost scientists of that particular field, and they will assess it. There are now number of models. Some follow it as double blind peer review. Some follows as open peer review. You can know who is the reviewer. Some says that you need not to know who is the reviewer, but mostly the reviewer of your paper, of your research, is the one who knows the research itself, who is the master of that subject. And you are getting 3 review reports. Mostly you are getting the first revision, then sometimes second revision, sometimes third revision, and finally, if your research paper is wonderful, they will accept it. Otherwise, they will immediately reject it. So this is what we call as the peer review. And all the wonderful journals, what we call as high impact journals, they need to follow. This is now the ethical point which are actually now taken into consideration, that peer review must be followed. And for every journal which has the JCR impact factor, journal citation report impact factor, which is actually taken as the only impact factor acceptable in the scientific arena. So they actually consider this important point, whether your paper or your journal is going under this peer review. Now, before this, ideas, we discuss how to publish. Now, let us discuss what is a strong manuscript. How do you assess that whether your work is now in this process that you can now publish it? How do you assess your own work? Because basically you have done the work, and it is you who can easily assess now the work. So what is a best strong manuscript? There are some points. Number one, it has a novel and clear, useful, exciting message. So if you think your paper is having some novel, some clear, some useful, and some exciting message, it means that your manuscript is strong. Second point, it is presented and constructed in a logical manner. Not only you have a novel idea, the other point is that it has been constructed in a logical manner. If you have a wonderful idea, but you are not putting in a very good format, so your idea is getting wasted. So both the things are important. And the third important point is that reviewers and editors, they grasp the scientific significance easily from your paper. So if these 3 things are taken into consideration, then understand that your paper and your manuscript is now a strong manuscript. Okay? One important point we need to consider is that most of the research papers are getting rejected because we are not having the novel and clear message in our papers, or we are not presenting and constructing it well as a logical manner, and we are just putting something and just submitting to the journal. You should remember that editors as well as reviewers, they are the busiest scientists. So whenever you send something and if they found a very lame excuse in your paper, they immediately reject it. Even though it has a logic, even though it is having a novel, if it is not written very well, if the important things are not mentioned, if it is not constructed even well, then they immediately reject it. So many times some students ask us that we have a very novel result, but still not getting published. The reason is that maybe you have not constructed it very well. That's why today's seminar is little importance because of this issue, that today I'm going to let you know some important aspects which usually we are not taken into consideration while writing the research paper, and our research paper is getting rejected number of ways. Now, before you write, you have a research done with you, you have a data, so you should ask some questions to you before you start writing. Number one, is this data something new or it is interesting? Am I doing some, doing some writing on some hot topic, say example, I will give an example of coronavirus. Coronavirus publication has been, increased maybe more than 1 million publications since last year. Almost all the aspects of researchers, some from sociology, some from medical science, some from environmental science, by this and that manner, they try to publish their papers because they brought the ideas. So the hot topic was, coronavirus. It was selling like the hot cakes. So everybody was swimming in the same boat. So that's what I'm saying it, that if it is a hot topic, everybody will take it. Even number of journalists, they put their special issues on the coronavirus pandemic, and somehow, even slashed as well as waived off their this article processing fees. So this is how you have to good at watchful researcher can think about that. If the topic is hot, some topics are always hot, some are seasonal hot, some are, this time they are hot, sometimes they are not so much hot. Hot in the sense, the importance of that type of research at that particular moment. Similarly, you have to consider that the data you got, whether it is providing some solution to some difficult problem. So you should know the problem first, and from that problem, whether your data generation or your ideas, you got it from the review or research paper, whether it is solving some problem or not. So these three important questions, everyone who want to write a paper, a research paper, a review paper, these 3 points should be taken into consideration. So if you are having and you found that these 3 points are there, that's a good point that you should be ready to publish at that particular moment. So if the answer is yes to all these questions, so then you should start preparation of your manuscript. So it's not that you have a compulsion of publishing and you are publishing without knowing what you are publishing. That time, most you are wasting your time, the very important and precious time. So that's why I'm telling you, we should at least know, we should ask the question with ourselves, because we know what we have done and what is in our hands at that particular time. Now, this slide is mentioning about that we have many types of scientific publication. We usually think we have only a research paper, and research paper is getting published from your research data. But we usually think about this way. But you should understand that besides these research papers, we have some other modes of publication where actually sometimes we don't know the research ideas. Even we don't require the research data. So you should understand that we have letters to the editors. Some journals, they understand and they consider letters to the editors as the publication, particularly to the nature and science channels. Some people I have seen, they are even publishing their letters as well as letters to editors as a publication in one of the in some of the topmost journals of the science, for example, Science as well as Nature. Simply, we have another one, we call it rapid communication as well as short communications. Short communication and rapid communication is, suppose you got some result. That result is very crispy, very short, maybe not more than in 3 pages, everything in 3 pages. But the topic is so hot and the topic is so important that you have to publish it. So most of the journals, they publish this type of research also. We called it rapid communication and short communication. Similarly, we have the review papers. Suppose you can develop an idea upon some very important and hot topic. Again, the same example of coronavirus, most of the persons, they publish review papers from different aspects of the pandemic. Perspectives are also the research papers, research paper types. You need not to publish your research data, but you can publish different aspects of research, what we called as the perspective. So that's why you have to self-evaluate your work. You can take the help of your supervisor or your senior colleague or somebody who is expert in writing. He can suggest you whether this time it is a full article to be published whether you should wait until you will get a paper data for a full and full paper article, or sometimes some crispy data is there, very important data is there. You need not to wait for the full length article, and you can publish it as a short as well as the rapid communications. So that's why I'm telling you, always have a confidence of your supervisors. Last lecture we have already, in the last lecture, in the last week, we have discussed about all that how a student and supervisor relationship should be better. And that's why every time, whenever you want to publish, just bring the confidence of your supervisor and discuss with him or her and check whether your article is ready, as well as what type of article you have ready. If you don't have the data yet, you can start with a short communication, or you can start with a review paper as well as perspective. But usually the perspectives are published by the senior scientists renowned in the particular subject, but review papers can be done by any student. Yes, he definitely or she definitely requires the help of some senior colleague in that particular review paper. Now, after this important, consideration, self-assessment, the other point is that which journal, scientific journal, I need to select for my research work. So usually it's a process, a very important process, and most of the things, if you don't select a particular paper for a particular journal for a particular paper, usually this is the process in which we become stuck. Most of the time of the scholar is getting wasted in this process. They think that their research paper is for this journal, but they, after 6 months, after 4 months, they reject it. They don't consider it for their own self. So in scientific research as well as scientific studies, we have some topmost scientific journals like Nature, Science, Lancet, NEJM, and many more. They are considered as the topmost journals in the science. And if suppose somebody is getting the paper in Nature and Science, I think this is sufficient. One paper is sufficient for making his career. But yes, they are not the genies there. We cannot say they are something, it is impossible. It is possible, but you need to check what type of research you are carrying out and how do you write that research paper. So depending upon the ideas, we need not to completely become pessimists that they will not publish your work. But if you have that type of caliber, how do you know what type of caliber the Science, Nature as well as Lancet have? You can usually read their papers and you can yourself understand what type of scientific standard and ethics they want in the papers. Now, after that, we have field-specific journals, topmost journals. And this is one of the important things. You know that you have the agronomy, you have agriculture, or you have a botany, or you have a sociology. So you know that in each journal, in each subject, in fact, we have, we call it the field-specific journals. And if you get the publication in field-specific journals, they are far, far important, and they will, get you lots of citation to your research. After that, we have some other field-specific journals. We call it multidisciplinary journals. So some journals are those which can accept the paper from allied fields, some different fields. Take the case of PLOS One. PLOS One usually takes the paper from biology, it takes the paper from sociology, it takes the paper from mathematics. Similarly, we have some other journals which are multidisciplinary in nature. So you can choose that type of journal also. And finally, you have the national journals. You see that you yourself knows what type of research you are carrying out. Suppose take the case of, I will give an example of, Kashmir. We have some small area there. For example, take the case of one district, we have Pulwama district. And in Pulwama district, you take some particular area of wherever you got some soil sample and you got some results there. And if you want to publish in the top specific fields or other multidisciplinary fields, maybe they will reject it. They will say that this is a very small data because you have considered a very small location and your sample size is very low. So that time, what you will do with this type of paper? What I'm saying is that don't waste this paper. You can put this paper in some national journal. So in every country, we have some good journals also. Take the case of India, we have Current Sciences there, which is, I think, hosted by the Indian Institute of Sciences. We have some other journals there in India also, which are good journals. I'm not encouraging you to go for the predatory journals, but there are national journals. So it is always good that you will publish. Then you will put the data in your computer, and after a few years it becomes spoiled and your data is of no use. So always think what type of information you have. Now, after another information is that how to choose your audience, because you are well known and you know what is your audience, who is your audience. Okay, this is very important point. Suppose you are writing, suppose for sociology, and you are checking some audience who is not from sociology background. So similarly, if your audience is local, you cannot publish in some international journal. So that's why if you make some data on suppose Dal Lake, given an example, if you mention is a Dal Lake, maybe internationally they don't know what is Dal Lake. So if you put it like Himalayan lake, so it becomes something international level. So that's why I'm telling you, if you want to identify the right audience for your paper, it becomes easier for you to publish and make it simply acceptable. Now in 2 slides, I'm mentioning actually what is the publication process. So this was pre-publishing. What you have to think about publication. Once you know it, now the other point is that you should know the process of writing. And I'm starting the process of writing, maybe starting from the research paper, then I will directly move to the review writing paper. So actually writing process is completed in 5 stages. First is, we call it pre-writing. If you see the topmost circle, it is a pre-writing. Second is the drafting. Third is the revision. Fourth is the editing. And finally is the publication. So any research paper, whatever you want to publish, it has 5 important writing phases. What is basically this pre-writing? Pre-writing actually means thinking and getting a focus on any idea. So suppose you don't know what you have to write. So what you do in the pre-writing stage, if suppose you want to write a research paper, gather your all data. Check what is in the data. What is the uniqueness in the data? Okay. If you are doing the sociology work, you got some questionnaires, check what answers you got for a particular question. Okay. Simply, if you are doing some review article, check what things you want to, put in the research article. So this is called as brainstorming session. So you know better what you want to write. So you will have some ideas. Those ideas need the brainstorming, and not only brainstorming, it's your own mind. Just go through the internet, gather the information about that. Maybe whatever you are thinking already somebody has published it. If it's not published by somebody, at least you will get the allied fields, or you will get the data about the same. Then whenever you point those, pinpoint those ideas, then you can join those ideas to make a web. We call it idea web. And after this idea web, you can use the graphical organizers to, give them a shape. Then your mind will think, yes, I got something to work about. This is called as pre-writing. And you will get an outline. Particularly this is done when you have to write a review paper. Suppose I will tell you write a review paper on, I will give an idea about the same, the effect of water, the effect of COVID-19 on the water supply. This is, for example, my title to you. Now, what you have to think, you will have to think about coronavirus and how it is affecting the the water. Now you will think about, yes, during the coronavirus, we have been told to use the sanitizers. We are washing our hands continuously. And these washing hands and sanitizers, all the water is going back to our water table. What will be happening? So now you got some idea and you are gathering the information. Now you will get different ideas. What happened to the aquifer? What happened to the ground table? What happened to the, you can say in the rivers and ponds? How much sanitizer has been used? You will get different data. So this way you will get a rough idea about the outline of your research review paper. Now, this is what we call as the first stage. That's what we call as the pre-writing. And usually to my students, I'm very much frank to you, whenever somebody wants to come to me for research, master and PhD, and this is the first job I'm giving to them. Get a brainstorming with them or with other colleagues and get some idea. Let us start some writing something. So I'm not telling them, okay, this is your title, I write it. No. Get the brainstorming about this idea. Yes, I'm giving them the main idea. And from that main idea, they have to write the outline of a particular review paper. The second stage is the drafting stage. Drafting means now whatever the ideas you got, you have to write, fill the gap, put the data inside, put the English inside. Yes, remember, no cut and paste. You can take the help of the good lines and good research from the research papers, but paraphrase the language. There are a number of softwares which will help you to paraphrase the language. For example, spinbot.com is one of the softwares which will help you. Or with writing, when you write number of times and when you read number of times, it will help you. Whenever you write and fill those gaps, whatever you have found in the outline, this is called as the draft. Now, this draft is your idea. You clarify the idea, whatever you got from the pre-writing, and you support those ideas with details and examples. You make it flow, you make the organization, you develop the sentences very well. We call it sentence structure, and you use the great language, whatever the language you have. Definitely, if you are a newcomer, you will get lots and lots of problems, and that's very common with everyone, including myself, including all the scientists, Einstein and others. So nobody is becoming Einstein at the first stage. Everybody is getting the problems, particularly in writing. Good thing is that the people from India, Pakistan, they have good English, Bangladesh including. So at least this department, we are very doing well. But naturally, we have to learn. Everybody has to learn. And this process is happening. Once you make the draft, now this draft is undergoing the revision. And if you see the draft and revision, I have make here a circular pathway, because sometimes this draft you have created and the revision, it has been made. Sometimes this revision is going for 3 phases, 4 phases, 5 phases. Who is doing this revision? Revision may be done by the expert of the subject, preferably your supervisor or your senior colleague or your senior friend who have already published. You can take the help of your senior colleague to get it revised. Okay. Now 3 stages has passed. It goes for the editing. Now this is the stage of editing. Here you have to now correct all the English, all the grammar, all the punctuation, all the capitalization, as well as the format of a particular journal. Okay? And finally, the 5th stage is the publish. And in the publication process, whenever you are supporting and you are suiting any journal, check all the formalities what they ask, because most of the papers submitted to a journal, 70% of the journals are getting rejected at this instance because they are not following the format of that particular journal. So this is actually the writing process. If you follow this, hopefully, I don't feel at least your paper is rejected on the basis of formatting. It will at least go to the review, and depending upon what type of things you have and what type of thinking the reviewer has, you will get either comments or there are some other things to follow. Now, all the younger colleagues who are new in writing the papers, I must tell you that this is the central slide of our today's talk. This is the process of writing, how to build the research article. See, we know that in the research article, if you know it a little bit, if you have read the research article, you know that each research article is starting a title, then we have an abstract, then from the abstract we have introduction, we have methods, we have result, we have discussion, we have conclusion, and in between we have figures and tables representing your data. Everybody knows it. Why I told you that this is the important slide of my presentation? Because of this arrow. As you see the arrow follow the direction of the arrow. You don't have to start with writing the title as well as abstract. No, never. You have to start writing and working about on your data. So to build a research paper, it is not starting with writing a title and abstract, never. Always remember, you have to start writing your figures as well as tables. How do you do it? First of all, whatever the data you are getting, use the softwares which are very prominent and useful for the statistical analysis. After you get some data, suppose you got some significance level and you got some significant data, something is following, something is not following. So analyze this data and make the data either in, represent the data either in the figures or in the table. This should be your first job while you are writing the research paper. Okay, very simple. I'm giving you a very simple idea how to write a research paper. So research paper is not starting with writing the title as well as abstract. Most of the students, they commit this type of mistake. Actually, the process starts with what I was telling you, your data. So analyze the data, get it done by the softwares, which are the very wonderful softwares used and known for the academic statistical analysis. And from the data, just prepare tables as well as figures. I prefer both. Sometimes you see the journal which is having only table as well as figure, but I prefer if you have suppose morphological data and you have physiological data, just make the morphological data in the table and physiological table, data in the figure, so that it will look very nice, and journalists usually prefer this type of thinking. Now, after this, you don't have to start with abstraction, no. Now you start the methodology. Now you know how do you have, gather this type of data, what methods, what materials you have used. So start with writing the methodology. Now after that, write the results. And all those results which are very important, not everything. So results, the English result part should be written from the table and figures, only that result which is important, which is showing some significance. And from the result, just start discussing. Discussing means whether your data or whether your type of result has been published previously with some other plant, with some other animal, with some other area. You can discuss your result with the already published papers. Okay, this is called a discussion. And in a student's writing, the student who is writing a wonderful discussion is actually known as the master student. Master means he is actually requiring the mastery in writing the discussion. Discussion writing is the most toughest part. It will take time, but with the writing process continuing, you will easily get how to get this discussion. So if you see for writing the research paper, you need to read lots and lots of research papers and check how they have written this discussion. After you write the discussion, now go to the conclusion, write the main points which you got from this research, and then you start writing the introduction. And after the introduction, write the title and write the abstract. So this is which we have to follow. So all these points are there in a research paper, but follow the arrow. And whosoever so far has followed this thing, I have, I think trained more than thousands of students about writing the research papers. And this slide, when I was, discussed this slide with them, and almost everybody was, surprised. They know this is the writing the research paper, but how to manage, how to write it, and how to manage what I can say the first and second sequences of it. It was everybody was appreciating it. Okay, now this is basically the general structure of a research paper. Just like a fish, we have three parts of a research paper. The research paper head is title, abstract, and keywords. Actually, these are the important aspects of a research paper. Like you want to go to the market, you will select the fish on the basis of its face. Okay. Similarly, is the if your title, abstract, and keywords are attractive, they are attracting the publishers to publish your paper. Also, they are actually citing, makes your citation very well. So that's why choose the title, abstract, and keywords very well. The body of the research paper is just like the body of the fish, the main ingredient which we are eating. So it is actually IMRAD, introduction, material and methods, results, as well as discussion. While as the conclusion, acknowledgement, supplementary data, as well as reference is just like the tail of your fish or a research paper. I'll give some, simple suggestions how to make all these important points very nice. First of all, about the title. So a good title should contain the fewer possible words that adequately describe the content of a paper. So effective titles should mention the main issue of the paper. It should begin the subject of the paper. They should be accurate. The title should be unambiguous, very clear. It should be specific, and it should be complete. And it is always, good to make title as short as possible, because articles with short, catchy titles, they are often cited, better. Because not only publication, the citation of that publication also matters in the longer, run of your research career. Also, do not use, those abbreviations in the title which are not usual. So rarely use the abbreviations. It is not good to write the abbreviations in the title, although it is sometimes important, but that time you can use. But most of the times you should avoid to use the abbreviations in the title. And remember that it is actually the title which is bringing the readership to your paper, and lots and lots of citations. I'll give the example of a title, a good title as well as a bad title. See the first title. Original title was Preliminary Observation on the Effect of Zinc Element on Anti-Corrosion of the Zinc Plating Layer. Long title, 2 times zinc has been used. This title has been revised as Effect of Zinc on Anti-Corrosive of the Zinc Plating Layer. What is the first and second title difference? See, long titles actually distract the readers, and we should remove all the redundancies such as observations, nature, preliminary observation, because these land things in English usually, this is not bringing a good title in the research paper. Similarly, we have other title, very small title, Action of Antibiotics on Bacteria. This is a very, very specific, long title. It is not specific. It is not mentioning what type of bacteria you are mentioning. So this is also, not looking very well. So we have revised it. Inhibition of growth of Mycobacterium tuberculosis by streptomycin. Very simple, very neat and clean. We mentioned which type of bacteria we are dealing, and how do this growth is inhibiting. So always think that title should be specific. Think to yourself, how will I search for this piece of information when your title is designed? So that's why I'm telling you, title should be designed at the end. It requires the expertise of your supervisor, your senior colleague, to help you in writing the title. So you can also be the master in writing the title whenever you check the paper. So that's why it is always said that whenever you want to write, you should read a lot. So reading a paper will also give you an idea how to write the paper title. After the title, after the abstract, I will tell you what the abstract we require to write some keywords. Keywords are actually in the electronic world, keywords actually determine whether your article is found or not. Suppose I want to check a paper on some particular disease, COVID-19. Whenever I put COVID-19 in the Google, so all the information about COVID-19 will be there. So that's why your keywords should not be too general, like drug delivery, mouse, disease. These are very common. If you put like this, so Google will get millions of hits and your paper is nowhere. If you put too narrow, so nobody is going to search for too narrow keywords. So that's why effective approach is look at the keywords of the article relevant to your manuscript. You can check your abstract, even check your research paper, which words, important words you are discussing there, and play with these keywords and see whether they will return relevant papers. Neither too many papers, not too much, because this type of information will help you in getting your paper cited very well. After these keywords, we have the abstract, and usually we know the abstract is the important information about your paper, and usually those journals which are not open access, they put this abstract available online. This will attract the reader if your abstract is written very well. So we have different formats. Some journals, they prefer only 50 words, but most of the journals, they prefer 250 words. And some journals, they prefer, besides this abstract, some highlights, which should be in the bullet points. Remember, advertisement, this abstract is just like an advertisement to your article. How to write the abstract? What should be in the abstract? Two things should be in the abstract. Number one, what has been done? What you have done? What has been done in this paper? This is the first point which should be mentioned and which should be written in this abstract. Another one, what are the main findings of your paper? What is the main finding inside? So these two things should be put in your abstract. What has been done or how has been done, and what are the main findings of your paper. So remember, if you put these 2 points in your abstract will be catchy and it will be easily, what I can say, attention creator. It will be an attention creator. After this abstract, we have to write the introduction, and the introduction is the main body, starting the main body of your paper. So we are following nowadays a funnel approach. We start the introduction with a general idea, and slowly after 3 or 4 paragraphs, we come to the specific question which we have addressed in the paper. So basically, for example, if you are starting a coronavirus effect on the water, for example, so you will start with the coronavirus disease, then you will start that coronavirus pandemic has affected all the aspects of life, then you will start it has affected the environment. You will simply select all the components of environment. Then finally you will come the very important point of your water is getting affected by the coronavirus. This is called from general to specific. So you can ask this different questions before writing the introduction. You will ask yourself, what is the problem? Are there any problems there? And are there any solutions to this problem? Which is the best solution possible previously? And what are the limitations of that solution? And what do you hope to achieve from this research, whatever research you have carried out, or what do you hope to have covered in your review paper, whatever the review paper you have written? So pay attention to the following while you are writing the introduction. You should be brief, because it is not a history lesson. You are not giving a history lesson. So be brief, introducing your problem as well as the solution. Do not mix introduction with result, discussion and conclusion, because result you are mentioning your result, discussion you are discussing that with the other results, conclusion is the final point. So everything is separate. You have to only introduce your problem and hypothesis you have checked, and the important things you think it will be achieved from this research paper. Use expressions like novel, first time, first ever. This is the paradigm shift, because these are the big claims, and science is very humble and noble. We shouldn't make this type of claims. Even if it is the first time or novel, you should write to the best knowledge. This may be one of the first time or novel approach. Don't write directly, this is the novel, because these are somewhat creating little bit issues with the reviewers as well as editors, because they think it's a big claim. And also in the introduction, cite only the relevant references. Sometimes you are making the self-citation, putting your own references there which are not relevant. So otherwise think that editors and reviewers, they are you don't think that they have a clue what you are writing about. So editors and reviewers, they know what you have written. So if you put a wrong reference, this could lead the rejection of your research paper. After the introduction, the second section is the methodology, experimentation. So it includes all the important details so that the reader can repeat the work. So it should be written in a way that it should be reproducible. Reproducible means somebody else, if he wants to write it, it can write very well. So you have to write the vendor's name, you have to write the chemical name, where from the chemical has been obtained. For example, if it is from the Sigma or Merck, or which instrument you have used, which model you have used. All the information should be mentioned in the methodology and experimental section. Also, mention the proper controlling experiment, which is the control. Avoid adding the comments and discussion. Only write whatever you have done. Don't mention, don't explain why you have done it. Yes, you can mention that it has been followed by this protocol or that protocol. And always, whenever you write the methodology, use the past tense, because already this work has been done. You have done this work. So always use past tense as well as passive voice. Passive voice in English is taken very well while you write the scientific paper. And sometimes if you have longer details to give in the experimentation, and I think experimentation section is it's not journals, they are not allowing you to extend it more than 3 or 4 pages. So you can put the document, spreadsheet, audio, video as the supplementary material. Similarly, if you are doing on the humans as animals, you require to get the ethical standard applications. So there are ethical committee reports, the data, the information, the number of the committee meeting, all these things should be reported in the paper, particularly when you are dealing with the humans, when you are dealing with the animals, because there are ethical issues, ethical committee approval. This should be always placed whenever you are writing methodology and your sample is humans as well as animals. After this methodology, we have results, and results are actually what you have found. And I told you results you will designate in the table as well as figures, but you will write them the main findings. The main findings you will write them in English also in the results section, but you will not write all the findings, because you will refer all the findings to table as well as figure. For example, table 1 says this, table 2 says this, figure 1 says this, figure 2 says this. But the main result of that table 1 and table 2, you will mention them in English. So finding from experiments described in the methodology section, whatever you got, you will write in the results. Also, you will highlight findings that differ from the findings in the previous publications, as well as unexpected findings. You will highlight them because this is your uniqueness. That is the novelty of this research. And all the results should be statistically analysis. Don't write the results where there you don't have used the triplicate results, you don't have used the required softwares. So every result should be statistically analyzed, otherwise the journal is not accepting it. So results are actually very critical to write, because whenever you are writing the figures as well as tables, they should be written in a very nice manner, because it is said that sometimes one picture is worth 1,000 words. Sometimes you put a picture and you need not write many details, the people will easily understand it. So results are actually the driving force of the publication. The caption should be nice. Legends must be detailed enough to make figures as well as tables self-explanatory. So sometimes we write the result, figure and table, we are not giving the good details. So it is not taken into consideration, and the paper will come back because your data is not shown in a very nicely manner in figure as well as table. There should be no duplication of result described in text or other illustration. Suppose if you have mentioned something in the table, don't give all the things in the text also. Just give the main findings. Don't make it redundant. Don't make one result in 2-3 forms. So that's the important thing you have to consider while writing the result. So what actually appears in the results, we call it appearance counts. So whenever you are writing the result, make good tables, good figures, very nicely. The plots should be uncrowded. If you have lots and lots of plots, don't put all the plots in one figure. It will be confusing. You can take 3 to 4 data set per figure. All the figures should be well scaled, well selected scales. Appropriate axes should be labeled, nicely label sized. It should be very clear. Symbols should be clear to read. Data sets easily should be distinguishable. So remember that there are lots and lots of mistakes we commit while we are giving these figures as well as tables. I will mention a few. For example, sometimes we forget that the text in photo or figure, it is not written in English. It is sometimes written in different language. Okay. Remember, the English is the language of the science. So we should give everything in English, not in French, German, Korean, Chinese. Sometimes we get the analysis from Korea or Chinese. They will send in the same language, and this is creating the issue. Similarly, use the color and very noble as well as nice color. Sometimes you make it very shiny, highlighted colors. So science is very, I told you, noble as well as very, standardized. So use those colors which are standardized as well as novel. And remember, some journals, they ask you to pay if you are to publish in a colored mode. So that time, just use the black and white, but differentiate those black and white in different brick structures. So color must be distinguishable if the color is used, and if it is printed in black and white, that must be also distinguishable. Remember, long boring tables and long boring, crowded plots, they make the paper reading very boring for both reviewers as well as editors. What about the discussion? The last part, discussion is basically the most important section of your article. I told you, you require to be the master in writing the discussion with the gradual pace. You will learn how to write the discussion. For that, I suggest read a lot research papers so that you will get an idea how to write a discussion. So basically, discussion is providing you a chance to sell your data. Most of the manuscript are reject because the discussion is weak. I am also the reviewer of most of the journals, and we have been told by the journal authorities that check particularly the discussion. If it is a weak, so tell us, because discussion is actually how capacity you have to sell your data. So check the following. How do your result relate to the original question or objective outlined in the introduction section? Because introduction section, you are claiming something, that your results are providing some solution. Now in the conclusion section, in the discussion section, it should be shown from your discussion. So ask some questions. Do you provide interpretation for each of your result presented? So it should be presented well in the discussion. Are your results consistent with what other investigators have reported? So you have to check whether these results are also following by others or not. Or if they are different, whatever has been published, then you have to give a proper reason. Sometimes the reason you know, sometimes you don't know the reason, but that time you can give your own hypothesis, mentioning that maybe because of this might be happen. Yes, there are limitations. You can mention those limitations in your research. No problem in mentioning the limitation. And you have to mention that does the discussion logically lead to your conclusion, whatever is the conclusion of your research. Two things you should avoid while writing the discussion. One, don't make statements that go beyond what the results can support. So whatever the results are, so science is, I told you, novel, as well as humble. So whatever the results are supporting, just mention that much. You can easily says that this part of research which is not supported by your data, this need to be done again or repeated again. Similarly, don't introduce a new term or new idea in the discussion. Discussion should be just following whatever the results you got. The final section of the research paper is the conclusion. So present the global and specific conclusion. One is the general conclusion, one is the specific to the particular data. Indicate uses and expressions if appropriate, and you can suggest future experiments and indicate whether they are underway in your conclusion. Do not summarize the paper. Summary is different. Summary of your paper is the abstract. Conclusion is just what you got, and abstract is the summary of your paper. So these are the two important points. And last important point in that is conclusion is that avoid judgments about impact. So as a researcher, you can give your suggestion, but you cannot give the judgment. Okay, it's very important point. Don't give the judgment on your results, but you can provide that this might be happening, this can be happening, but don't make the judgmental statements. One important point, which is also getting I can say 50% of the journals, they are getting rejected because their references are not getting right. And usually we are getting this type of comments from the reviewers. So that's why check the reference of your of the journal which you are submitting the paper. So because it's not responsibility of the editor to format references correctly. So check the reference style of the journal. the spelling of the author names, the year of the publication, wherever the punctuation has been used. Sometimes ital is written as it and l. Sometimes it is written in different words, okay? And avoid citing the following if possible. Don't cite the personal communications. This is called as self-citation. You can cite them only whenever it is necessary, but this is nowadays a usual thing. Don't cite any unpublished observation, because whatever you are claiming, it should be supported by the literature. Editors may ask for such documents for evaluation if you cite them in the paper. So that time it will be very difficult to provide those things, and that will be, the cause for your rejection of the paper. So remember all these things. Simply, articles published only in the local language, which are difficult for international readers to find. Don't, put those references which are written in a different language, for example, in Turkish, in Chinese, in some other language. You can use Endnote. Endnote is a very wonderful software. In fact, if you are a younger colleague, if you are in master and PhD, just go through the Endnote software. It will help you in arranging the references. In fact, the students who are in master and PhD, I think they should learn some important softwares. One among them is the Endnote, and this is helping you in arranging the references. They will save you a longer time for not only the research paper, but also your thesis. Sometimes some paper has the supplementary data. As I told you, sometimes you cannot give all the information and methodology or the introduction in the main, the text of the paper, because a research paper is having some, what I can say, some questions you have to follow. A research paper has some limitations of the pages. So, but if you have a longer information or some supplementary data you want to show, you can put in the supplementary materials. So sometimes the supplementary material is not published, but they put it in the, online. If suppose somebody wants to see, they will see it. Okay, so this is the typical length of a research paper. I'm telling you a typical length. It doesn't mean always this is following, but more or less 80% journals, they follow it. Full length research paper maybe from 25 to 30 pages of length, A4 page with 2.0 spacing using the Times New Roman writing. Some journals, they have their own specific formatting, but this is a usual thing. Title page, sometimes some journals says you have to write title page separately because they don't want your information to be sent to the reviewers. But most of the journals, they want together, title as well as the other page. Abstract is one paragraph, 250 to 300 words maximum. Introduction maybe from 1.5 page to 2 pages. Double space, 12 font, Times New Roman I'm talking about. Similarly, methodology, 2 to 4 maximum manuscript pages. Result and discussion is important. Sometimes you can write them separately, result separate, discussion separate. Sometimes you have to write them together, result and discussion together, 10 to 12 pages. Conclusion, maximum 1 manuscript page, figures 6 to 8, tables 1 to 3, references 20 to 50. This is just a model for a research paper, normal research paper. Short communications, you may have strict limits of the size, 3,000 words or not more than 5 figures and tables, or 3 pages maximum. You can take the help from professors, librarians, writing tutors, content tutors, and you will also see the model of successful research papers because if you are a newcomer in this field, these things will help you definitely in improving your writing skills. Nobody is becoming the master, I told you. In the first instance, you need the help, and these are the helpers. Now, if you go to the review article, because research article, we have a set pattern. What about a review article? The review article, anybody can write, whether you are in master and PhD. Yes, surely you require the help of some senior colleague to be put in the review article, because most of the journal, they accept the review article only when you have some senior colleague which have some experience in that particular subject. So I have put here 7 steps to write a review article. Number 1, read at least 5 high quality chapters on a similar topic to make yours better. Whenever you want to have some idea, suppose writing on coronavirus and health, writing on coronavirus and vaccine, or writing on coronavirus and economy, So first of all, at least read 5 high quality papers on it, chapters on it. Similarly, gather and read about 50 to 100 original articles relevant to that particular writing you want to write. Because whatever you want to write, it should be supported by the literature, and this literature comes from research journals, particularly original articles. And to be suffice, I'm telling my students, whenever somebody is coming for me for PhD and master, this is their first job, because actually this gives the idea to a student what actually they have to write. So whenever they read, they will get the idea and they will quote the citation. The third step is that write down a list of about 5 to 8 subtopics, because review article is written in the subtopics. The first topic I told you. Now in the subtopic you will write for example, if we write economy and coronavirus, okay, you will write the economy before coronavirus. This is one subtitle. Then you will write the economic recession, which has been carried out in number of years. Then you will write economy and previous pandemics or epidemics. So this becomes many subtopics, and here supervisor can help you. And this will constitute a draft of your article structure. Fourth is write in each section. Now you have different sections. In each section, you have to write 1 to 3 paragraphs, including one illustration, maybe in the figure or the table form, or a scheme of a photo, so you can use the colors. Fifth step is to write the introduction, because introduction is giving as I told you, the holistic view, starting from general, like a funnel to the specific. And you can give the introduction in 2 to 3 paragraphs or 1 to 2 paragraphs. Finally, you have to write in step 6, you have to write the abstract. Abstract should have 2 parts. Number 1, issues and problems. And also the second part is the major advances in that particular field. And finally, the 7th step is writing the title using both specific as well as the general keywords. This is a flow you have to follow while writing the review article. Title, abstract, background, as well as issues. You can list the advances, then writing the introduction, then go to the sections. The section may be analyzing 5 to 8 original articles. You can write the figure table, conclusion on the main trends, 1 to 2 sentences. Again, writing the third section, writing the 4, 5, 6 sections, so far and so forth. And 7 is the conclusion. And finally, you have to write the references. Now, I have some few more slides where to publish your research work. So I have already given one talk that is available on my YouTube channel, Dr. Khalid Hakim. You can go through there, where I have mentioned that there are some predatory, journals, those journals which will hijack your research and you will be ruining your data. So always choose the right ones, good ones for your publication, the impact ones, the Science Direct, Springer, Wiley, Cambridge, Taylor and Francis, MDPI, but MDPI is, a pay model. You can follow all these journals, they are free mostly. And avoid those which are blacklisted, which are predatory, which are lesser known journals, because even though they will publish your paper, but it is of no use and you will ultimately face problems in the further academic career. Now, this is the editorial process. Remember, whenever we submit our paper or research or review paper, remember, acceptance at a first instance is very, very rare. But sometimes it happens, you put the paper, it is so nicely written, you got the accepted, after revision. If it is happening, so congratulations, it's a big cake for the department, because, getting published is not easy, but if you publish in the first or second instance, you deserve applause, you deserve a cake that naturally in the department. Now you should wait, your proof pages will come to you. You have to check the page proof, and finally it will be online published. What happens if your paper is rejected? And I have written, the probability of getting your paper rejection is from 40 to 90%. So this is happening with everyone, including myself. So what happened when you get rejected? Do not get disappointed. It happens to everybody. Try to understand why your paper has been rejected. Consider reverse advice. Be self-critical yourself. Don't say, see, we are just from India, that's why they have rejected. This is not happening in science. Might be this is possible in a very minute scale, but at a higher level, this is not possible, okay? So you are self-critical. If you submit to another journal, begin as if I are a new manuscript. Sometimes what we did, we get rejected, we put the same paper without doing anything to the other journal. And sometimes the same reviewer is getting and we are just wasting our time. So whatever the comments are coming, remember you have to address those comments. Take the advantage of the reviewer's comment. They may review your manuscript for the other journals too. So also follow the guide of our authors of the new journal again and again. And by this way, you will improve your journal acceptance chances. Impact factor is very important nowadays. So how to get the impact factor? Sometimes we will give a full lecture on it, but this is a way. Normally impact factor, JCR list, impact factor, journal citation report, index impact factor is every year in the month of June. They are publishing the impact factor of every journal, which they are indexing of 2 years previous. For example, in 2021, we will get the impact factor for 2020. And they will assess the impact factor of 2020 and 2019, 2 years of previous. So this is why and how the impact factor of any journal is getting assessed. I will give a full lecture on impact factor and how relevant they are in the next time. Maybe in the next lecture, we'll discuss about impact factors. Now, important point, very, very important point is the plagiarism. So when I was checking, it is correction and the pronunciation, it is plagiarism. Sometimes called it plagiarism, something like that. But in Webster's dictionary, it is called as plagiarism. Plagiarism actually is defined in dictionaries as the wrongful appropriation, close imitation, prolonging and publication of another author's language, thoughts, ideas, expressions, and the representation of them as one's own work. For example, I put something, this is from others, and I say this is my own work. This is called as plagiarism. In scientific community, plagiarism is a biggest crime, okay? So to our younger colleagues, I must tell you there shouldn't be any cut and paste job, because there are a number of softwares which are used by the journals, universities like Viper, Turnitin, Authentate. These are some of the journals which are taken, and they can easily get your similarity, and sometimes if you commit them again and again, you will be blacklisted from that particular publication. So many problems are associated with the plagiarism, because as I told you, we have 2 different plagiarism detection schemes. Turnitin is usually used by the universities. iAuthenticate is used by the publishers and corporations. And manuscripts are checked against a database of 20 million peer-reviewed articles, and Elsevier, including Elsevier and all the other softwares. Cross-check is powered by Authenticate. This is also checking all these things. There are some editors and reviewers, they know because they are the field experts, they can also detect these plagiarism issues. Your colleagues, sometimes you publish something and your colleague will ask, and he may create an issue about it. There are other whistleblowers, because there is a retractionwatch.com, one big organization, and there are a number of people independently working with it. They are also checking the plagiarism. If it is not counted in the works, sometimes you plagiarize the figure, sometimes table, and anytime, and you can see in big journals like Nature and Science, most of the papers which are published, they are getting later retracted. Retracted means they take it back because of these issues. So first instance, avoid doing all these things. Don't think you are the over smart. There are a number of other means and ways by which plagiarism is easily detectable. I'll quote some of the examples which has ruined the life of many people because of this plagiarism. Hungarian president, he was forced to resign over his doctoral plagiarism scandal. He was a doctor, claimed to doctor. He says, I am the doctor. Paul Simitis was his name. When his thesis was checked, it was plagiarized. He was the president of Hungary. Finally, he was resigned. He was forced to resign from his position. Similarly, German minister, he also loses the doctorate after the plagiarism row. This is a famous case of Japan. Haruko Obukuta, a researcher from Riken Center for Developmental Biology, she published in Nature, second paper also in the Nature. She was just 32 years old, and finally it was found by retraction watch that it has been plagiarized. And finally, her doctoralship was snatched, her position was snatched, and she come in the in the public, in the media, and publicly she has apologized. So you can see what type of big issues can happen. And this is the famous name in India. Everybody knows it, Dr. Deepak Pantal. He was that time 63 years old, a noted professor and vice chancellor of once Delhi University. His student has published a paper without his consent, and finally he was found that it is a plagiarized, and this lead this important person, vice chancellor, to go jail for a few days because of this plagiarism issue. So very, very bad consequences are related with this plagiarism. Final slide for today. What leads to acceptance? So these are some of the points provided by the editor-in-chief for Ori Geology Review, Dr. Nigel John Cook. He once mentioned that actually acceptance are every word of the first word of every this acceptance is giving us a message. If you follow that message, this will lead and help you in getting your paper accepted. Number one, attention to your details. Whatever you are writing, give attention to them. C means check and double check your work. Another C means consider the reverse comment. If the reverse comment are coming, don't forget. E means English must be as good as possible. P means presentation is important. Everything is there, but if presentation is not there, it may be rejected. T means take your time with revision. If revision comes from your supervisor or from your reviewers, take your time. A means acknowledge those who have helped you during the research paper or research data generation. N means new, original, and previously unpublished work should be published and placed in your work. C means critically evaluate your own manuscript. And E means ethical rules must be obeyed. There should be no cut and paste job. There should be no plagiarism. So this is a best explanation of acceptance, and this is leading to the acceptance of your paper. I thank you all for cordially listening and watching this important session on how to write a wonderful research article as well as review paper. And I hope there are some questions. I may take a few questions for 5 to 10 minutes before I shall leave. So anyone among you, I found 24 people are now in the participants. Someone, if you want to, ask me a question, you can ask me, you can raise your hand. You can directly ask me a question like, and also if suppose somebody wants to write a question, you can write a question also in the chat box. So before that, I think Saeed Shoaib Qasim is there raising the hand. Please unmute yourself and ask the question. Saeed Shoaib.
Basically, as you told about writing the articles and everything, the main point is once we start with a principal investigator or a guide, the problem is his field and our field will not match. The idea, that is the field of interest. So how do we blend it with the field of interest of the guide, then carry on? Because in India, you know that whatever the guide is there and specialized in his field, he will not leave his field. And there is no scope of our own idea to be kept in front of the guide. So how do we blend the idea and go through?
Yes, Mr. Shoaib, very good question. And I suppose you have not checked my previous lecture on student-supervisor relationship. I have covered all these topics there. Basically, when normally in Indian scenario, when we are selecting our supervisor, most of the times it is not our choice to select our supervisor. So we are giving a supervisor where our frequencies as well as ideas are not matching, or there is expertise of a supervisor is different. That time you can take the help of a co-supervisor, which is having the expertise of your subject with that of the co-supervisor. Yes, I told you that, and you have raised a very important and relevant question that if now we have the supervisor by choice or without our choice, he's our supervisor, how do we match with him? See, you have to convince your supervisor by showing the data as well as the trends of publication. Suppose if there is a supervisor who is not expert in your subject of publication, naturally he will hesitate. He will have this hesitation. He will say, how can I know? What should I know? and he might be having this issue, or he might be having this problem that he cannot help you. He cannot, expertise, giving his expertise view on his particular subject. That time you can consult someone else who is expert of that particular field, and you can convince your supervisor to use his expertise, the other person's expertise, in helping you in writing this paper or review paper. I think this is the mutual thing. This is how you can bring in the table, both of you in the same table while you discuss. So you can bring someone, but before that you will bring him. You can discuss with him unofficially that I want your help in my paper or in my review. But before giving him official consent for helping, I suppose there shouldn't be any conflict. Discuss all these things directly with supervisor. Ask him or her that I have this expertise who is helping us. Please give me your consent. And most of the cases, supervisor give you the consent. I have seen the supervisor, because the biggest issue with the supervisor lies is that he thinks if he starts the paper writing like this way, I don't have expertise. How can I defend this thing? This is the important things. But if you bring someone who is expertise in that subject, and then you will communicate with your supervisor in nicely manner, I suppose there will be no problem in the supervisor. I hope this is the answer to this question. Okay, so Dr. Muhammad Gulfisha is asking a question. Sir, sometimes I have noticed, even experience with myself as well, that the manuscript submitted by me got rejected, but same manuscript, I mean some type of other work accepted. Please explain the possible reason. See, very nice and relevant question by Dr. Muhammad Gulfisha. See, there are two ways. Maybe the data is same, but the presentation is not different. Is not same what you have. This is one reason. Other reason might be you have not selected a good journal or relevant journal. This is what I'm saying. So not only writing is important, but also selecting a journal is important also. These are the two reasons. Third is that sometimes, and this is happening also, they will take your idea and somebody is publishing from his student. So that's why nowadays the journals have done one thing. Whenever you submit a paper, you can submit we called it preprint. Preprint means your paper is still under review, but you made it preprint. Preprint means it is getting DOI number and it remains in the public domain that this work is yours. Okay? So nobody is touching your research work. Yes, it is possible that relevant research works are published. That's why I'm telling you, if you have a data, don't wait. You have to be very first to publish it. Otherwise, you will not get a chance to publish it very well. Dr. Asha Nabi is there. She can unmute and ask the question.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
We have published some data previously, and then there's a lot more information in that data that we have not published. For example, we analyzed the data in a certain way and we got it published in a good journal. Now, today we think that there's a lot of information can be, a lot of information can be drawn from that particular data set.
Okay.
So if we analyze the same data set and publish it, will that be considered as plagiarism?
No, it will be not considered as plagiarism, but whatever you have to do, you have to give the reference, the basic reference of that particular data, that this data has been published in by this way, but nowadays we are publishing it with a different scenario and using different softwares and different interpretation altogether. This will be not considered as plagiarism, because sometimes some says this is a self-plagiarism, but I have discussed these issues with a number of journals. They say this is not, what I can say, the plagiarism, when you are giving full reference to your previous data set. So you can use the same data, but with different interpretation. And naturally, whenever you are writing it, you should write it completely in a different manner. That it will be not considered as the plagiarism. This I have done also in my paper. Suppose I was having one paper of my PhD, the same data set, half of the data set I have used it one way, the same data set I use in different way, but different problem to solve. And both papers are published in a very good journal. So there is absolutely no issue, and already in the public domain since 12 years, so no issue at all. And this I have discussed already with the publishers, the great publishers, and with the senior colleagues. They said it is not the plagiarism. So don't worry, it is not a plagiarism if you are publishing with a altogether a different manner. But yes, mention that you have previously put this data from different perspective, and that has been published from this research. I think we have another question. Very good. Balkis is asking a question. In scientific writing, is there a need for getting skills for better illustration, or are there softwares that you can do? Recently, I noticed this is my paper as their illustration geography are beyond what is expected. What suggestion do you? Very nice question, Dr. Balkis. I must ask you that, see, previously, the publication was you can directly use the Excel data and put in a very simple tables and figures and publish it. But nowadays, it is a matter of illustrations. So if you have nowadays now the wonderful, what I can say, softwares are used. Some are very simple, like Prism 5, Prism 8 is nowadays we are using. Though all those new softwares are giving a different altogether shape to your data, the same illustration. So what I suppose is that whenever you are going to publish your paper and you are interpreting your results, I suppose use the high class softwares, or you can take the help of paid softwares also. Okay. Yes, they will also give a good and new dimension to your data that is actually presented. And also it depends also upon your own interpretation, how you can put the data in the same manner and different manner. Like we were getting a question from Dr. Asha, and she has said that we have the data. Now previously we observed and analyzed it one way, another way we observed in another way with different typeset and other aspects. Surely for yourself, yes, you can use the good softwares, sometimes paid softwares, which can make your data nicely presented, good illustrations, and believe me, this will also increase your chance to publish your papers very quickly, easily, and get it accepted. Yes, there is some other question. I think there is Muhammad OS, I suppose. Is it Muhammad OS?
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum assalam.
Yes, sir. First of all, I would like to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sir, I have a couple of questions, if the time permits.
Sure.
First thing is, how different is Endnote than Mendeley, since I have used Mendeley browser for referencing?
Yeah.
Second thing is for publication, because most of the journals charge for their publications, and some of them even show good impact factors. Like here in Southeast Asia, if in India we want to publish in some journals, if they are under UGC, they are recognized by UGC, they will charge not less than 5,000 to 6,000 rupees. And for a student, which is I think beyond their limit. And sir, if we want to publish it for free of cost,
मैं करता हूँ आपको फोन वापस थोड़ी देर में मुझे बहुत याद आ रही है आपके आज.
If there is someone, please mute it up. Only Muhammad Oais is talking. Please rest of others, mute it up. Go ahead. Continue. Yes, Muhammad Oais.
Sir, for free publications, what are the guidelines that I should follow so that some reputed journals take up my work and then they publish it for free and not charging anything?
Very nice, Muhammad Oais. Nicely asked two questions. Number one, the answer to the first question is that you are using Mendeley instead of Endnote. I think both are same. Depends upon the most of the cases, the journals they will accept both, whether Mendeley or the Endnote. Mendeley is from Elsevier, so if you are going to publish in Elsevier, they are mostly they consider it from them. And if you are using Endnote is acceptable mostly by everyone. But if you are following Mendeley and you mentioned that you have followed the Mendeley in the cover letter, I think there will be no issue, no problem in it, because both softwares are working alike. So this is just more or like who has produced it. That's why it becomes little. Mendeley is from Elsevier and Endnote is not from Elsevier. So this is only the matter. Rest, the formatting as well as arranging the reference, both softwares are working very well. I should have included Mendeley also here. So whatever, if you are following Mendeley as well as Endnote, both are okay. Now regarding your another question, you are right. Not only UGC care list, but if you go to international level, we have nowadays open access journals, which are not predatory. I'm telling you, they are good journals, but they are also asking the amount. Now you say 5,000 rupees, it is very, very less amount if you consider the amount asked by MDPI journals. MDPI journals, they ask from, if you say Indian scenario, 1,50,000 rupees for a single paper. Similarly, if you go with the gold access of the Elsevier journal, they are asking about 3,400 USD. Now you can consider how much the amount it is. But fortunately, we have some good journals, both not only in the UGC care list in Indian journals, but also at international level. When I say most, yes, still most of the journals published by Springer, Elsevier, Taylor and Francis, Wiley, most of the journals are free. But now your question is that how can we get our paper published in those journals? See, then we have to include and improve our standard of writing, improve the standard of our research. See, I will give my example. I have more than 135 papers published so far now. And among these 135 papers, only 35 papers, I think not 35 even, maybe 25 papers are paid journals, from paid journals. More than 100 papers from myself, I have published from non-paid journals. And if you check those non-paid journals, all are from ISI, JCR list, they have the good impact factor. Okay? And wherever I have paid the amount, I must tell you those are from the research grants. Because why should I pay from my account? My theory is very quick, very simple and very straight. Why should I pay for my own, data? If I do my hard work, why should I pay? Today's seminar is basically, meant for this type of question you are asking. We become so much obsessed. We think that maybe it is because of the, amount we will publish our paper. Believe me, it is not the amount. It is the quality of your paper data as well as your interpretation. If you interpret it very well, I have seen the people from Kashmir, they are publishing huge journals, free journals. This is one. Second, sometimes you are forced to publish in some, paid journals. I may agree upon that thing also. But that time you can ask the help from, the journal. You can ask them to give you the waiver. Sometimes full waiver, sometimes half waiver. But still then journal, it's their policy. Most of the journals, if they are in the good journals they are, and they want to improve your citation, they can easily give you the waiver, full waiver, when your data is nice and your paper is nice, because they know your paper will bring the citation to them. I have many chances like this way. We have some papers, very good journals, but they usually ask the amount. But when we got a paper acceptance, we discuss with them. We put our point to them that we do not have money to support this. And some have provided us full waiver, some have provided us half waiver. This is how we have published our paper during our master and PhD time. Or my students are doing this if they know the paper is not so much high quality. But if the paper is of high quality, I think this is not a big deal. You can easily publish in any free journal. Most of the journals from Elsevier, Springer, even now, they are publishing free of cost. So improve and increase your the standard of writing as well as data gathering. Inshallah, I hope you will get it, and soon you will see your papers are publishing there. Although it is time consuming, I may agree they are time consuming, but if your data is very nice, you will inshallah get the paper in good journals. There is Aisha Shaukat. Please, you can ask your question. Unmute yourself.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Alaikum salam.
Sir, I want to ask, can you please guide us in some other lecture about for figures and how we use different softwares like Inkscape, Adobe Illustrator, because using softwares like Prism GraphPad, origin, it's comparatively easy for us. But how to draw figures, it's so much difficult, right? For example, if you are writing some review paper, you need to draw some figures, and we don't have such background like using such software. So we just like stuck in the middle for such. So we need a guideline. Kindly, it would be so nice if you guide us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your question. To answer this question, I must tell you that if I want to start guiding about the softwares, it will be a little bit difficult because it needs a descriptive nature, and it becomes a sort of a very technical talk. What I suppose is that there are two ways in which you can get the good illustrations done, figures done. There are two ways, simple two ways. Number one, to be very straight enough to speak about this thing. Number one, because you need not the expert to be expert in every subject. Naturally, as a scientist, how can you be the expert in every subject? So two ways. Number one, either you have to pay the amount, because there are freelancers, there are good illustrators, they will make the illustration instead of you. This is one, and usually we don't have this type of option open, but I put an option here because we don't have money and others, but internationally we have the amount for that. Sometimes university is giving us the illustrator or web designer, he is designing all these things for us. Sometimes we are hiring the people who are doing this type of job. The second option is that you can offer a co-authorship.
Okay, right.
You can author a co-authorship of an illustrator or anyone who is doing. And I found in LinkedIn, when I was creating my LinkedIn profile and I put my data there, many people, many students, they say, sir, we want to associate with you any of the ways you have publication, we will do this thing, we will do that thing. And naturally what they want, there are two things, either the amount, money, or you the authorship. So you can easily provide so be very frank in giving the authorship if they have really contributed very well. So don't give the authorship, we will call it the ghost or the best friend authorship or ghost authorship. You already have to give them as a gift authorship. You give them their worth authorship because they have commented and they have done things for you. Sometimes these illustrations becomes important point to get your paper published. So why not to give them the co-authorship? So you can discuss with your supervisor. And always do one thing, what I usually feel from my 15 years experience, I must tell you, whenever you do anything with your research paper, bring the supervisor in your confidence. If you are in the student life this time, if you are yourself, you are in a academic staff or you have your own choices, that time you can be liberal to give authorship to your friends or anyone who is helping you. But if you are a student, most of the confusion, suppose some student is asking me, sir, we want your expertise to help us, we are not getting this paper done and that. First important point for them I put is, I want the written consent from your supervisor. If your supervisor is writing, we don't have an issue in helping it, naturally, that time it becomes obligation for myself. Because I have learned this thing one time. I helped a student, because I want to be very frank with you, I have helped one student in getting his paper published. He was not getting his paper published. Finally, after getting the paper published, his supervisor, caught me. Why are you publishing my student's work and this and that? So these ethical issues, although I was not having any personal benefit, even I don't put my name in that paper, but still supervisors have some issues with the student. They don't want to help him. Many other things. I have already discussed all these student-supervisor relationship in my other YouTube video. I have my channel, Dr. Khalid Hakim. I am putting all these issues there, and you can check in length and breadth about that lecture, and you will understand why these conflicts are coming up. Okay?
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have a question? Before that, I will end up lecture. Okay, there are two questions. I think Shadma Wahab, you can ask the question.
Assalamu alaikum, Doctor.
Walaikum salam.
Doctor, I want to ask about the Creative Commons to all. I have seen many tables, figure, it is written. So what means regarding the review article, if that tables and the figures supporting strongly to my idea, so can I use this type of the things? What does it exactly mean, the Creative to common to all like these things? If it is written, I saw the in many tables and a figure, it is written like that.
See, there are nowadays number of journals, they publish a graphical abstract. Graphical abstract means there are two types of abstracts. One is written, another is graphical. So in graphical, you can make such type of graphics so that everyone can get whatever you have presented there. Similarly, nowadays there are some journals, particularly review articles, what they say creative to common. Creative to common all means there are some illustrations you are making to make it very journal very easy to understand, all not so specific, because to your research paper there are two types of audience. One is they are the experts, they are the scientists, they are the students of that subject. Others, they are journal. Nowadays this creative to common, these illustrations you will see in the newspapers. Suppose take the case of coronavirus. If you see the newspaper, Times of India and others, you will see there are some pictures, some simple illustrations that even a layman can understand what actually is meant for that. So yes, you can use that creative to common all figures, tables, illustrations. This is advisable. You can use them frequently, particularly in case of review articles.
So doctor, that means there is no need to take the copyright as it is. We can import, or still we need the copyright from that.
No, because this is from your own. Creative to common is from your own. Where from you want to get the copyright? Copyright is basically when suppose I am using someone other's data, someone other's picture. There are some pictures in the internet, they are free. They mention there is no copyright on it. Some you can draw yourself. But if you directly take some pictures somewhere and use them as such without referring them or without taking the permission from the actual content creator, then it can create an issue of the copyright. Suppose I am also using some of the pictures in my slides. Okay, these are those pictures, either I have taken the permission. Suppose some slides are used from Elsevier, because I got a workshop from Elsevier about this paper writing. It is very old talk in 2012. I got a permission from them to use their content in my slides. So this is without copyright. There is another issue which you can draw yourself. There are some of the softwares nowadays. Even I am learning the softwares. Doodly software is very easy to. I got it Doodly from $47. So I can make my own creations without getting any copyright issues. Similarly, in Google, you can find some figures without any copyright. You can use them. But yes, wherever there is copyright involved, you can ask the permission. Whenever you ask the permission, you can put it. Suppose I am the editor and writer of about 72 books now. And whenever for our authors, I am sending them the illustrations, and they send us the illustrations and others. There is one form we are sending them that is called as permission form. Suppose if they want to take the illustration table as well as figure from anywhere, they need to fill that form, get the consent from the original author, and from that they can easily use it. But if it is if they are not getting that one, so we prefer to call them and tell them that you have to write or draw it your own self and make it some unique changes which can make it different from the already published one. Then there is no copyright.
Doctor, thanks a lot.
I hope this is an answer, and I hope I have given the answer to everyone. Thank you all for being present in today's lecture. So you can see the recording of this lecture in my YouTube channel, Dr. Khalid Hakim. On YouTube, I am there now, I think 3-4 months. So these lectures are coming up, inshallah, also. And in next week, inshallah, we shall take another simple type of topic, maybe how the review process is going on to the paper, because I'm also the reviewer of number of journals. So I may think what is the brain of a reviewer when he is checking your paper. Maybe that will be the next lecture, or we will start a next lecture on how to write and edit a book, because I am the writer and editor of almost now 72 books. So I can also share that thing. And for other interesting content and other interesting lectures, it is free of cost. You can easily follow the YouTube channel, and you can get all the lectures free of cost. Fi amanillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.